This was the part of motherhood that was actually like, it's really not about you anymore at all. You feed on demand, so whenever they're ready, you need to be ready to go. No matter if it's day or night, or they are cluster feeding, where the babies will just feed continuously. She would feed pretty much every half hour during that time. And it was, I don't want to say the word brutal, it was next level. Like, it was not tender, it was hardcore painful. And it's something that I just don't think anyone really prepares you for. So they can get really big, really uncomfortable, really sore, really swollen. I was so scared to breastfeed in public. I can't even tell you how scared I was. It's not easy, and it takes a toll. It's mentally challenging, and it's mentally exhausting, and it's physically draining. The thoughts that I had way back when, I know why I had them, but they're just non-existent, really, because it's just not the truth. By 4 months, the breastfeeding was tolerable in terms of pain, but by 5 to 6 months, it was definitely like I wasn't hating every feed, which was massive because I didn't actually think we'd get to that point ever. Hey guys, and how you doing? Welcome back to my channel. Hey, what are you doing? Cuddles. So today we're talking all things breastfeeding. Keep watching to find out more. So I thought that when Bella was cluster feeding and it would get to the afternoons, my supply felt quite low, my breast felt quite empty. So I thought at one point that I had an undersupply. So you can have an oversupply or an undersupply of milk. So oversupply obviously is when it's kind of like your baby gets too much of it and they're sort of like guzzling for it, and it can like spurt out and hit them or spurt across the room sort of thing. And undersupply is when you just don't have enough to feed bub. So you might have to top up with a formula feed, or you might have to take some lactation cookies or tea or something like that just to boost your supply. When I thought I had an undersupply, I did go and buy some lactation cookies, and I think I had 2 of them over the course of like a day and a half, and I did not have an undersupply because I actually ended up getting blocked ducts a couple of days after, and I think it was because I had the cookies. I wasn't pumping or anything like that, but I noticed that a lot of milk was coming, but she didn't actually need it. Like, she was getting what she needed, so whatever was being produced she kind of wasn't using, and so it was getting blocked up there. That's kind of what it felt like anyway. Your supply can also be affected by if you're really tired, if you're super hungry, little things like that. I always tried to be really well hydrated and just try and keep my protein levels up especially. And then I also, easier said than done with a newborn, but tried to get rest when I could, but didn't actually have an issue. That was actually one of the good things about breastfeeding for me, was that I didn't actually have an issue with oversupply or undersupply. I am quite lucky. I know that some people, if you do have an oversupply, you can actually express and donate your breast milk. So it will go to babies that need it, their mums can't produce it, or you know, they're without a mother to breastfeed, anything like that. So you can actually donate your breast milk. There are charities out there where you can do it. Aside from breastfeeding, you know, being your main source of food for your baby, it is the best bonding experience with your little one. Certainly in the early days with us, I wouldn't really say I felt like it was a bonding experience. I felt like it was a stressful, I don't want to be here experience. But as we've worked at it and we've gotten better and we've understood each other's rhythms a bit more, it's just been the best bonding experience. And more so in the early days, she would just look up at me while she was feeding, and we'd sort of just lock eyes and just really connect and bond that way. And it was a way for her to understand, you know, I was her mum, and just to feel more comfortable with one another. But now she does it a lot less. She's not on the boob as much. Now she does generally, if I'm speaking or eating, she'll put her hand up here. And at first when she was doing it, I was like, oh, it's like a new bonding thing, it's really sweet, it's like really heartwarming. But she actually does it for me to stop talking or stop eating. It's a distraction for her when she's feeding. I'm actually surprised she's going this long feeding while I'm talking. She is kicking me though. Are you farting? Yes. But you know, in the newborn stages, when it was the middle of the night and you'd been up, I don't even know, like 3 or 4 times already, and she'd be feeding, and then she'd look up at me and just smile after a feed. That was the best thing. And that was enough to be like, all right, let's keep going. Let's keep doing this. I'll get up again however many more times tonight. We'll stay up however long you need to tonight just to be comfortable and to get enough milk. And that's all you need. Like, it's just one little smile. And seriously, it changes everything. And it's not just in terms of breastfeeding, it's anything to do with the baby. Like, if you're having a bad day, if they just look up at you and smile, it's all worthwhile. Hey. But Bella as well, so she gets her hands involved quite a lot, and more so probably now. Back, you know, in the newborn stage, they just sort of pat at things and do that sort of thing with their reflexes, and now she'll like grab onto my boob and like squeeze it. One of the lactation consultants that we saw said that's actually a way for bubs to encourage the letdown of the milk, so it encourages your milk to keep coming down while they're feeding by them getting their hands all up in there. So we didn't know that, but that was kind of cool to know. No matter how you feed your baby, you're going to bond with them, but definitely the bond that we've got just from breastfeeding has been amazing, and I really wanted Bella and Matt to have some sort of a bond as well and that sort of a connection. So whenever he's home, generally speaking, like I reckon 8 out of 10 times, he will always burp Bella. So after the feed, he will burp her, and it just gives them that little bit of close time together as well that they wouldn't otherwise have if I was doing it. And the times that she has had a bottle, Matt has been the one to give it to her. Obviously with water and that I give it to her, but in terms of milk, I've never done it, and it's just another way that they can bond. Like she can look up into his eyes and vice versa, and it's a good way for them to just connect. Hey, connect with Dada. Oh. If you are struggling with the amount of feeds that Bub is doing, they do drop. And if you're a first time mum, I know it can be like super overwhelming and you just think, oh my God, when is it like gonna end? I definitely thought that. Up until probably 5 months, we had problems. People would say, oh, you know, the feeds do get less, and I'd read about it. But when you're in it, you're kind of like, when is it gonna happen? Like, oh, it's so bad. Sometimes it's really, really bad. Well, for me, sometimes it was really, really bad. But I reckon at about the 8-week mark, I really noticed that her feeds dropped off a little bit. So I reckon she was having, I don't even know, I've got it recorded. I actually have all of her feeds recorded from birth. And I reckon it was like 18 a day initially. That sounds quite a bit compared to what she's on now, but I reckon, because she was cluster feeding hardcore, so I reckon it was probably that. And then I noticed like it would drop to like 14, and then over the course of maybe 4 or 6 weeks it would drop again, and it would always drop around the times when I sort of thought, I'm at my wit's end, this is just it, like I don't have any more patience, I don't have any more will to keep going to try and breastfeed. And so that actually helped me continue, because for probably the first I don't know, 4 months, I was seriously just going day by day. And people would say, you know, how's the feeding going? Because they knew we were having issues and want to know where we were at, and if we were going to switch to formula, or if we were going to mix feed, and if I was going to change. And I was like, no, I'm just taking it day by day. Like I wanted to set a goal to 4 months, and then I kind of wanted to do to 6 months, but I was like, I can't do that. Like I actually just need to go day by day, because it was so difficult. Like it was so hard. And so when I did notice the feeds actually start to drop off, and she was getting a bit more in and being able to go a bit longer between them, oh, it was such relief. Like I can't even tell you. It made it a lot easier. And I mean, as soon as she started solids again, the feeds dropped, and now she's 7 months, and she has probably, I think she has 4 feeds during the day and then 1 to 2 overnight. So she's having so much less. It's so manageable now. It's amazing. I didn't think we'd get to this stage at all, but just knowing that the feeds drop, I think is just, I hope it helps somebody out there, just me saying that, because it does get better and they do feed less. If you can't breastfeed, you don't want to breastfeed, you're having troubles, whatever, there is formula. I don't know too much about formula because I'm still exclusively breastfeeding with Bella, but we did get one when the whole virus thing started, in case I did get sick, just so we had a plan B if I couldn't feed her. So there's different stages depending on their age. There's stage 1, I think it's up until 6 months, and then stage 2 is 6 to 12 months, I believe, and then stage 3 is beyond that. And it's got the different components that they need for a wholesome diet if they're not getting breastfed. So there are different ones. There's ones based on cow's milk products, one on goat's milk. I don't even know if it's milk. I guess it's powdered milk. There's soy ones, there's oat-based ones. There's a whole range out there depending on what type of base, I guess, you want for your baby. So definitely have a look at what is out there. There are actually so many out there. I know that when we decided which one to get for Bella, when everything sort of happened, we didn't actually realize that there were different stages. We didn't realize all the different types. Cow's milk is not something that we wanted to give her straight off the bat because Matt and I are both intolerant. So we got a goat's milk based one. I'm hoping that she's not like that and I can give her cow's milk products and whatever else, but just to be safe. So we got a stage 2 because she's within 6 to 12 months and she has started on solids, but there are so many different ones out there. So I'm not going to go into it, but definitely don't be afraid to do it if you need to, because the saying fed is best with babies is so true. If you can't breastfeed, if you don't want to breastfeed, if you're having trouble with supply, if you don't have the support, if you can't mentally do it, whatever your reason, it's okay. As long as the baby is fed, it doesn't matter. So if you need to substitute, that's not a bad thing, as long as the baby is getting fed and not being neglected by not being fed. So guys, my next tip for you is to just be kind to yourself, because give them more milk. Because while breastfeeding is really easy for some people, and you know, a lot of people it comes naturally, and if that happened for you, that's amazing. You know, all power to you, because man, I would love to know what that feels like. But for so many people it doesn't, and that's the thing. You need to just be kind to yourself, because I think there are a lot of people that are in quite a similar boat, but it's just not really talked about. People don't generally say, you know, oh man, I'm having like the worst time breastfeeding, blah blah blah. A lot of people want to have this, you know, this idea that everything's going great. A lot of people, I think, feel guilty if they don't feel like they've got everything together. And I mean, I don't think people generally do have everything together. I mean, with or without kids. And so to be kind to yourself is just so important. Some people don't get it and some people do, and that's okay. I read something, the Australian Breastfeeding Association released a press release in March last year, in 2019, and they said that in Australia 96% of mothers initiated breastfeeding, and by the time their babies were 4 months old, only 27% of mothers were still exclusively breastfeeding. So I mean, that kind of sums it up there, that I think a lot of people actually have trouble with it. It's just, I don't think it's really spoken about as much as it should be. And certainly going into motherhood and going into post-birth, like everything we've been told, like antenatal wise and all of that, and anything we did postnatally, was really setting us up, I thought, for this glowing, positive breastfeeding experience. And it's just not the case for so many people. I mean, if it was, you'd have more numbers of mothers breastfeeding still after 4 months. And I really think that the system actually lets you down in that regard, because honestly, like, it wasn't pressure, but every hospital appointment we had, it was like, so you're going to breastfeed, you know, you're planning to breastfeed, are you breastfeeding? And they never talked about the options to not do that. And for some people, you have to not do that because it's just not going to work, and that's okay. And I think there's just so much pressure out there for people to continue on the path. And if they don't, then it's this massive guilt trip, and it just doesn't need to be that way at all, because if your baby's being fed regardless of how, that's all that matters. But I will leave the press release down in the comments below if you want to have a quick read of it. But I definitely think it needs to be talked about more, that, you know, we need to be kind to ourselves and each other in terms of breastfeeding and in terms of everything. But there are groups out there and helplines out there that you can contact if you are having trouble, and it's okay to reach out to them. The other thing I read, that in America, the CDC, so the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, I think that's what they're called, they released stats as well that said that 60% of mothers don't breastfeed for as long as they intend to. So, I mean, it's not just in Australia, it's worldwide. So guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope that you've learned something. I'd love to know your experiences with breastfeeding in the comments down below. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. What's that face? As it really supports my channel. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And we'll see you next week. Bye guys. Say bye-bye. Bye guys.